Hello, in this video I'm gonna do a comparison between macOS and Windows, and you'll find out which reigns supreme. So I think it's opinions based, and also it really depends on what you're doing and what your priorities when it comes to operating systems are. But let's begin with things about Windows that Windows users like over macOS. So the first thing is wider software compatibility, of course, especially for gaming, engineering, and legacy apps. So if you need some certain software that you know is unavailable on Mac, and there's a chance of it being true because Mac has some good exclusive software, but it's not like this type of software is only available on Mac. Only this certain app is available on Mac, whereas there's a chance that some legacy software won't even exist for Mac, even some alternatives, especially some drivers for some professional devices or some engineering devices. Then there's a chance that they won't be available on Mac. Then gaming, there's more gaming titles since Windows has a higher market share, and also Windows has better GPU driver support and custom hardware, so you can first of all install a better GPU on your Windows PC. If you have a PC, not a laptop, then you can swap your GPU pretty simply, and it'll let you just upgrade your gaming performance easily. Then there are things like the better driver support for GPU, since Windows has been focused on gaming performance for a while now, and macOS only recently started developing better gaming environment on their Macs. So I think that gaming on Mac will get stronger in the future, but as for now, macOS loses with Windows in that matter. Then hardware variety, since macOS only runs on Apple devices, and that's controlled by the license of macOS, you can make a Hackintosh, but it's not really legal, and you shouldn't do that because it can't be done legally. So I wouldn't recommend doing that. And Windows can natively run on most of the modern software, most of the modern hardware. So I think it's just much better because you can select some certain hardware that you need for the things that you're doing, either for some professional work or for gaming. There will be different pieces of software, different CPUs, different GPUs that will work best for that, and you can choose between them freely, whereas on Mac you're only limited to Apple devices that have fixed graphics, fixed CPUs, just selected by Apple, and you can't choose between that. Then there's a thing like backward compatibility on Mac. On Windows, sorry. On Windows, there's backward compatibility, so old programs often still run, not always, but often. Whereas on Mac, there is a chance that they won't work. Also, if you have an older Mac with some old macOS like Mojave, Catalina, Sierra, High Sierra, El Capitan, or even Mountain Lion or Lion, they are pretty old. There's a high chance of them not supporting some newer apps, whereas on Windows, you never really know, but there's a chance of them working. Also, some app manufacturers on macOS give you on their website a list of older versions of the programs and tell you which of these versions will work on which versions of macOS, but not always manufacturers do that, and sometimes if you want to find the old version of a program so you can run it on your old MacBook, then you'll need to simply download it from a third-party website, which you'll never really know if it contains a virus or not. So I wouldn't recommend downloading apps from untrusted sources. Although I'm gonna talk about that later. I think that macOS has a longer support typically. So if you buy a Mac, you're guaranteed. If you buy a new Mac, like a freshly released, you have guarantee that it'll receive updates for the future, I think 7 or even 8 years, depending on the Mac you have. And even after the support, apps will still support it. Most of the apps right now, the newest macOS is 15 right now, and most of them still support macOS 11 or 12. So some like devices from 10 years ago will still run just fine. Now let's talk about the business use. So Windows is much better in Windows use because it just has better support for enterprise tools, and it's a thing that I've already talked about in wider compatibility, so I'm not gonna talk about it too much. And let's move on to customizability, because I think it's also pretty important for some users. For me, it's not important. I'm a Mac user myself most of the times. At work, I use Windows on my work PC, but at home, I prefer my MacBook. So I just don't really care about the customizability. But some users that like to mess around with their software, on Windows, you can install apps that will alter the all of the things in your, maybe not all of these things in your system, but you can download apps that will change the taskbar, the menus, the menu bar, the menu, the start menu, yeah. Also, they will change some colors in the system. Of course, on Mac you can also change colors, but with some of these apps on Windows, you can change more of it. You can literally change anything you'd like. You can change the color of the start button on the taskbar to red instead of blue. And there's lots of things that you can do, really. You can even change if you're starting up your Windows, often there will be a Windows logo and loading circle at the bottom. Sometimes it'll be the manufacturer's logo instead of Windows logo. You can even change that to your own picture on Windows. So it has a greater customizability. Then file management. I think that Windows Explorer offers more granular control and context options on Windows. So if you want a better file management, I'm personally used to Finder on Mac, so it's not something that I care about a lot, but there are obviously things like cut and paste instead of copy and paste, which on macOS, cut and paste is available in text editing, but isn't available in Finder, and on Windows Explorer it is available. Now let's talk about why macOS is preferred by some users. First of all, the user interface. It is clean, polished, and consistent across different system and non-system apps. Apple shares a large API library for developers of different apps, so they can make apps as consistent as they can, so they provide similar user experience and user interface with the system apps. Now, system integration, and this is a very big thing for macOS. it's seamless with iPhone, iPad, Apple Watch using AirDrop, which lets you send files pretty quickly natively without any additional apps, and it just works fine. You can send the files between different devices, or even share them with your friends if they also have Apple devices. There's Handoff, which if you open a website on your phone, then in any browser that you have on your phone, then on the dock on your Mac, there will be a new icon displayed with your default browser set on Mac and your iPhone in the top right corner, and you can click on that, so it'll simply open that website you're looking at right now on your Mac. It's great. You can also copy on your iPhone, paste on your Mac. You can do that with files, text, or images. It also works pretty great. Then there are things like if you have an iPad, then you can move the cursor to your iPad. It's called continuity display, I believe. I don't really remember. And you can drag a file from your iPad onto your Mac using your Mac cursor. It's great. Then I think there's way more onto that, like continuity camera or iPhone mirroring, and Windows doesn't have most of these things. And the last thing for the system integration and the continuity is FaceTime and iMessage. So if someone calls you, then you'll see that call on all your Apple devices, and you can answer that call from all of these Apple devices, which is pretty great. Also, if someone texts you, you can read and answer to that message on all your Apple devices, and both of these things work even though you have your SIM card only inserted into your iPhone. Now, the built-in apps on Mac, I think that they are way higher quality, like iMovie, GarageBand, Preview, Pages, and some other apps that I can see on the Mac. I don't really remember. Like Safari, I love Safari on Mac. I think it's like very just useful and convenient and works pretty smoothly compared to Edge, which I don't really like on Windows for a few different things, but of course it's opinions based. Then there are Notes, which are also synchronized across all your Apple devices. I really like the built-in apps. Then security. Mac has a much greater out-of-the-box protection and fewer malware threats. And the malware threats are fewer because macOS simply has a smaller market share, first of all, so there's less malware produced, but also it has a greater protection, so it's much harder for malware to be created, so it omits these protections and actually harms your computer. Then software optimization, I think it's talked about a lot, that macOS is optimized for Apple hardware. Since it only runs on Apple devices, it is made for that hardware specifically, so you know it always works smoothly and is optimized as much as it can. Then there are things like trackpad gestures, which I think Windows is trying to reproduce them and to copy some of them, but from my experience, on Mac it feels more natural. The animations connected with trackpad gestures feel more natural because they actually follow your movement. So there's this like very used gesture, which is swiping up with 3 fingers, and if you swipe slowly, it'll do the action slowly, and if you swipe up fast, it'll do that action fast. on Windows, no matter if you swipe just like 1 centimeter or half an inch, or if you swipe fast like across the full touchpad, it always has the same speed and looks exactly the same. Sometimes even on good hardware, it takes several milliseconds for the action to even run. So if you swipe up with 3 fingers, now it works just fine. But yeah, if you feel it in person on both of these devices, if you put them side by side, you'll see that. You'll see the difference. You'll understand the difference. But yeah, sometimes it just takes several milliseconds, and that's visible. You can actually see that it takes a moment for that. And it's also connected with software optimization, but also the fact that your Mac is always ready for you to input that gesture, and your Windows isn't always ready for that. It's not always expecting you to do that. So yeah. And stability is something that I've talked about with the software optimization. Then there are system updates, which are way less intrusive than on Windows, because they are less frequent but reliable enough. You don't need to worry that if it's less frequent then it has less security, because it doesn't. It actually has great security, but it just isn't as intrusive. And also let me give you an example of that. On Windows, you can open the system updates in the settings and stumble across 50 different updates of different drivers, different portions of the system itself, of system security and stuff, and you need to install all of that. Some of these updates won't install themselves, you need to retry, and once you install them, like 50 of them, then you can go into the system settings 2 weeks later and stumble across another 30 updates of the same things that have been updated 2 weeks ago. And that's something that I actually notice pretty oftenly, because I work a lot with Windows laptops here. And you can tell me which one do you prefer? Which of these features are killer features for you and are things that make you choose one OS over the other one? Or maybe you have something else that you want to share about Windows or macOS that you like it for. That's all for today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next time.